everybody, and welcome to the Meddling Kids Podcast, a review of all things Scooby-Doo. I'm sitting here wondering what I just watched. I'm Stephen Pappas.
And I'm Julie Kidd. I am also shocked by today's episode. We are talking about Decoy for a Dognapper. This is the 5th episode in the first season of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And possibly one of the most racist things I've ever seen on TV.
Absolutely. I was going to say, we need to address the elephant in the room, which is there's going to be some talk of racism in this episode because, my God, they crossed some lines and then they just kept going. I was real uncomfortable.
It was shocking. We'll get to it, of course, because we will give you a review of the whole episode today and then deconstruct it for you to help you understand everything that happened. But the racism doesn't start till halfway through, and then it is, what? It just comes out of the blue. But also, you might recall that last week we talked about a brief... I don't know, what do you call it? Entanglement with a sarcophagus / in quotes here, cigar store Indian. And
right.
Stephen said it made him so uncomfortable he felt like his skeleton was leaving his body.
Yes.
Just to put this in perspective, all the things we're going to talk about today. So
yes,
trigger warning.
It was worse.
Yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about indigenous peoples, Native Americans, different tribes, and a lot of stereotypes. So even though this is a comedy podcast, we don't endorse those things. We endorse indigenous peoples, but we don't endorse stereotypes about them. So anyway, yeah, this episode was weird. And also some stereotypes about dog people.
Okay.
I mean, a little. You know, have you ever known someone who does like AKC style dog championships?
Yes, I think one of the listeners to our other show does dog competitions. I might be wrong, but I think so.
Okay, we have to ask her or him to give us some intel on it. So, I did a little bit of research. Stephen, do you know what the prize is? I don't know about Westminster Dog Show, but I was able to find the prize for the National Dog Show. This is the one held by Purina. Any guesses?
What the prize is?
Yeah, like, what do you get? In addition to the prestigious title to be the grand prize dog.
I mean, I want it to be something fun, like a king-size dog bed and like a lifetime supply of sausages. But I'm really starting to think it's more like $275,000.
Okay, well, in total prize money awarded is $20,000. So that's
a little less.
a little less, a lot less probably. I'm guessing that's split among 3 or 4 different categories and things like that. So it really is like for the glory of the thing rather than for the money. And we're going to get back to that because today's all about prize dogs getting stolen and ransomed and then very casual racism.
Yes.
Should I jump into this episode and explain to our listeners what's going on?
Yes, you should. Jump in with the cheeriest intro I've ever seen on a Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah, because it was sunny, right? I mean, we had some nice weather. It was a beautiful fall day, and Scooby just looks delighted as he's walking down a leafy path. By the way, again, under deciduous trees, because we're seeing lots of leaves here. So this goes back to the idea of maybe this being Florida where there's deciduous trees or something.
Yeah, but there's not. I think it was like, to me at least, it was clearly fall.
Yes.
Because of all the leaves. And I was like, Florida, people come from Florida up to where I live to look at leaves. So like, I don't think they have leaves in Florida. So maybe this is somewhere else.
Florida. I think we need to revise our earlier assumptions. Okay, maybe not Florida. Scooby's sniffing around and just having a blast. And all of a sudden, he sees a super sexy poodle. She is really hot. I don't know about you. It got my blood going.
Nope. No, it did not.
No? Okay. Oh, me
Nope,
neither.
That's just you.
I was comedy podcast. I was joking.
Sure you were.
Yeah, so Scooby, like you do, grabs some flowers for her with his snout. Even though he has opposable thumbs, he doesn't want to put her off. But she and her owner walk right past him, completely ignoring him.
He got shut down real hard.
real hard. Both of them are just snouts in the air. And both the dog and the mom had a snout mouth in this one. The artists were pretty clever drawing them similarly. They definitely had an artistic director in this episode, much to our chagrin later on. Okay, so they go behind a huge bush. And then we hear, "Help! Help!" and some yelps. Now, presumably the help is from the human and the yelp is from the dog. But it is possible that this is another dog like Scooby who can speak. But then we see a figure running off with the dog. And then we hear from inside the bush, "Help! My princess has been dog-napped." And we hear that. So we don't know if maybe it was the mom who kidnapped the dog or what. Because, it's Scooby-Doo. All options are open. And then Scooby growls. And when he growls, you can see he actually has flat herbivore teeth instead of carnivorous teeth. Side note, Scooby's a vegetarian. Okay, scene change. Time for another gloomy beach party.
Yeah, why are they always on the beach at night?
Because
I don't like it.
Because it was the same exact animation as from the oh gosh, I don't even remember what episode 2 is called where they were in the water. Because, and I can tell you it's the same exact animation because Fred and Velma are dancing again to the Running Man. It is the exact same scene. They just copied paste.
But more frustrating because all I could think was they're out here. It's night. We don't know where they are in the world, so who knows what location this is and what kind of creatures live there. Right. And they hear this like really intense growling and like weird canine noises. And Daphne goes, "That sounds like Scooby-Doo." And I'm like, or like a rabid coyote. Like, you need to be very careful. Like, you don't know.
They were not on alert at all. They were having some fun. And it wasn't like a starlit night. I mean, that sounds nice. No, it was your gloomy, it's about to start raining beach party.
Right.
So it is Scooby-Doo because he's growling and barking. He uses his opposable thumbs to turn their radio to a story about how a dognapper has struck again. This time,
breaking news.
Right. It's such a big news story that Scooby knew that it would be on some radio station someplace. It was bound to be.
Right.
Like the Amber Alert for dogs. So and this time the dognapper took the 3rd prize winning pooch in 3 days. And there's a $500 reward from the owner of the very first victim, not this most recent one. And that owner's name is Buck Masters.
We haven't even met this character yet. All they've done is say his name, and I wrote down, yeah, so it's got to be Buck Masters, right?
I still thought it could be the woman who was just pretending her dog was dog-napped to, reduce suspicion. No?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, Buck Masters. I love the names in this show. Although Ebenezer Shark is still the best. Okay, Fred says, "Gang, we've just been handed our next mystery." So now I'm wondering if instead of a beach party, this is maybe their homeless encampment, and perhaps we've had their MO entirely wrong, and that they really just are maybe runaway children who need money and a safe place to stay and some caring adults to help them.
That's so sad, though.
I know. Well, it's not great for a comedy podcast. I'm just saying that, it's a real life problem, like some other real life problems we're going to get to in this episode. But I have changed my mind. By the end of the episode, I don't think that's the case. I think they are in this to help out. And I also think we have maligned Fred in our previous episodes and that he's actually a good guy. Maybe he is a serial killer, but he might have had his reasons because we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Yeah,
okay.
I noticed in this, I was just like, Fred's not being nearly as maniacal and evil as usual, and I kind of miss it.
Maybe he was just really hungry on those other days.
That's fair. Okay.
So they go to see Buck Masters, and how would you describe him? I can describe him, but you want to take a shot at it?
One, he's this dude, kind of got the big shoulders going on, and he's got kind of a hook nose and a mustache.
Yep.
And he's also way smarter than anyone we've met in the Scooby universe so far, and here's why.
Why?
He looks at them when they're like, oh, well, we'll solve the mystery, blah, blah, blah. And he literally looks at them and goes like, you're kids. What can you do?
Good point. Yeah. Okay, yeah,
And I'm
fair.
just like, oh, so he's the most down-to-earth person we've met so far because he's like, he's saying what I'm thinking all the time of like, yeah, what can you do? Fair enough.
Well, what I wrote down in my notes is he's a Teddy Roosevelt type. Like, he's sitting behind a huge desk. Looks like a big game hunter. He has, like, all these pictures on his wall instead of the animals he's killed of the dogs that I guess he's shown at dog competitions. But he also has, like, a nice big skull on his not a dog skull, it's like a ram or a cow or something,
It's like steer horns.
Yeah, exactly. But then in the corner, I know you're gonna have opinions on this, there is a huge stuffed dog. Did you notice this?
Wait, what?
There is a stuffed dog on display.
No,
I don't know how you missed it. Because I know that you have opinions on, what's that called when you stuff an animal?
Taxidermy?
Taxidermy.
I'm not nearly as bad as Chris, the co-host on my other show. No, he's terrified of it. I just think it's kind of weird, but at the same time, I like to imagine that this stuffed dog is kind of like Rowdy from Scrubs.
Okay.
If you've ever watched that.
Yeah. Right.
And that, like, Buck Masters just moves him around and pranks people with him. So that's what I'm going to imagine is going on.
Okay, that sounds good. So Buck Masters helps them understand what's going on. He said these thieves, remember, he was the first victim, or his dog was the first victim. He said the thieves wanted a ransom, but he'd rather use the money to solve the mystery. He's sure his dog would win first prize at, do you remember which dog show it was?
No, but I imagine it's like the county dog show.
Yes! Oh my gosh, Steven, you were so good at this. It was the county dog show.
Yes.
So keep in mind that the winners of the national dog show competition split $20K. Okay, so we can imagine what the prize is going to be at this
county dog show is just vouchers for I can't speak English because I'm so distracted by it. Like, all I can think of is, like, you win and you get a tiny booklet of vouchers for Frosties from Wendy's, and that's it.
Oh, yeah. That's something. Yeah. And he says he was sure his dog was going to win first prize. Now, Bob Miller's Great Dane is a shoo-in. Fred, did you say Great Dane? And Scooby is very excited about all this dog talk, and he's trying to imitate the dead stuffed dog in the corner by, like, putting his tail out straight and stuff. So anyway, Daphne is concerned. She gets right to the point. Isn't that dog in danger? And something about Daphne's voice, it sounded really weird to me, but it's also possible that that's just the longest she's ever spoken in any one sentence, aside from when she's fallen down holes and stuff. And so maybe I just didn't recognize her. Yeah. Buck says, I've warned him. He only takes his dogs on walks at night near the police station. Okay, so during all this exposition, because that's way too much information for us meddling kids to deal with, Scooby is imitating the pictures of the AKC dogs, and it's really cute. Okay, so like you said, the kids express their intent to solve this mystery, and Buck is really patronizing, but he kind of encourages them. I feel like he encourages them the same way I do my kids when we're at the lake, and they announce that they're going to go catch fish, but all they have is a little plastic sand pail and no bait.
Oh, that's totally doable.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, go for it. And then, like, I get an hour of reading my book. So, you know, I'm like, okay, sure, go for it. In the van.
Yes.
Holy smokes. We get a nice view of in the van. I don't know if you were high on melatonin this time. Do you have?
Not this
Do you
time.
remember?
Do I?
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to put you on the spot.
Well, the van is essentially a cross between the Starship Enterprise and the Hall of Justice.
Totally. Yes, that's good.
Like, what is it's very TARDIS-like.
Yes.
On the
It's
inside. Like,
huge.
what is going on? There's switches and buttons and lights and bells and whistles, and I'm pretty sure like a 3D holographic like planning table like they have in like superhero movies where they're just like moving blueprints around and planning. It's really, really elaborate.
Yes. All of a sudden, the inside of the mystery machine is full of high-tech spy equipment. It's pretty amazing. Or it also, because all we really see is just patches of color, it could be they got a bunch of free paint samples and like hung those up. But I do think it's supposed to be high-tech spy equipment. Because there is like some radar stuff they use later. It's impressive. Remember, kids, this is 1969. So, pretty good. Fred shows the gang a picture of Champion, which is like the dullest AKC dog champion name I can possibly think of. Champion looks kind of like Scooby, but without opposable thumbs and not as cute.
Right.
Fred explains his great plan. He says, simple. We'll use a Oh, by the way, has anyone noticed nothing really racist has happened yet, right? Like I said, it comes out of the blue. Yeah.
No, we're doing good.
No, we're doing good. It's just good job, Scooby Show. So far, it's just a kind of a weird, overly complicated plot about dogs. Okay, just to remind our listeners how we started. Okay, because I want everyone to be on edge. Fred is like, simple. We'll use a decoy and plant this transmitter in the decoy's collar. And I feel like Fred is also saying, don't worry if this decoy gets lost. I buy these by the dozen. Like, how does he have this decoy? But it looks very high tech. Of course, Scooby does not want to be a decoy, but Daphne asks him to be brave. She wants to give him a Scooby snack for
Snoopy
courage.
snack?
A Scooby snack. Unfortunately, Shaggy steals it. And then
Which is weird, right? Like, he just ate a dog treat.
It's definitely the first time he's eaten one because he chomps it up, he catches it in air, and then after he eats it, he says, not too bad. And so, like, as though it was a surprise. Whereas in subsequent episodes of the show, he eats them regularly, and they use them to bribe both Scooby and Shaggy, which I think gives weight to your thought last time that they are laced with good drugs.
Yes, and I'm also learning that I was wrong last time because if I just waited one more episode to ask this question, I wouldn't have had to because this is the first time Scooby does anything for one Scooby snack.
Right? Oh, yeah, that's right. You were asking about that. Yeah. And because Daphne asked him to be brave. And also because Scooby wants to get it on with that poodle we saw earlier. So, I mean, he's got a lot of good reason to go help.
Right.
So she does give him another Scooby snack. They want to make Scooby look like a champion. So he has a bath and then a fancy collar. And then he stands up real proud and he looks good, right?
He does. I'll tell you who doesn't look good. It's Shaggy. Because at one point, for a good solid like 10 seconds, his beard was the same color as his face.
Oh, man.
And I was real uncomfortable with it. Like, it's just like they forgot to color in his weird chin beard.
Oh, it is. Yeah, that's a bad beard. And they really costumed him poorly because they... I don't know why they could just let Shaggy be Shaggy, but since Scooby's in costume, Shaggy's wearing a creepy, long, ill-fitting trench coat and a bowler hat. And he looks like a total perv.
Of course.
So, Scabby and
Shoogie. We're doing good today, guys.
Thanks. Oh, man. Shaggy and Scooby are walking around the same loop at night that Champion normally takes. And they walk by a dog that I'm going to suggest is a papillon. That's the closest breed I can think of to it, except it's kind of bigger. Do you know what papillons look like? They've got the big fluffy ears.
Are they dyed pink?
Not normally. Was this a pink dog? I didn't even notice it. I was just like,
yes, it was like bright pink, like hot pink, and I was really disturbed.
Yeah. I wonder if that's supposed to be like the dog equivalent of like a streetwalker or something, like in the Scooby universe, because she didn't have a human with her. And she does some questionable things. Okay, so let me just describe for our listeners. Scooby sees this dog. She is very impressed with Scooby, and she has like big hearts in her eyes. And Scooby struts by. He is feeling very proud to have all this positive attention. but Shaggy doesn't let Scoob stop. So she tries to knock a trash can onto Scoob. But remember, we want Scooby to be looking like a champ. So Shaggy uses his bowler hat to catch all the trash. So,
makes sense.
Makes sense. Science. And then commercial break. So we get to commercial break. Still no weird racism. Some weird dogs, but nothing else too creepy. But what will happen to poor Shag? We're going to find out after this. I mean, wait, what will happen to poor Scoob? Will Scoob be taken for a decoy?
And what will happen to Shaggy? Who knows?
What will happen to Shaggy? Who knows? Let's find out.
Hey, my name is Paul, and I'm not an animal expert.
I'm Donna, and I'm not an animal expert either.
And together we do a podcast about animals called Varmints.
Every week, we pick an animal, do a bunch of research on it, and bring you some interesting facts about that animal.
But we don't stop there. We talk about that animal in movies, TV, and other pop culture.
And we talk about whether or not the animal would make a tasty dish, and how intelligent we think that animal is on a scale of 1 to 10.
It's exactly like one of those fancy PBS nature documentaries.
Except not at all like that really in any way.
We're on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from, and we're at blazingcariboustudios.com.
Okay, so welcome back, you meddling kids. Get ready for weird stuff. This episode, Steven's going to go on a long time. There's just so much to talk about. Okay, I can try to talk quicker if you want. But Shaggy and Scooby pass by a truck with lots of smoggy exhaust, and we see a white hand cut the leash, and we hear Scooby shout, "Row, row!" And it's like the saddest cartoon noise ever.
It was actually really sad and disturbing.
Yeah. I think that was just to emotionally prepare us for what was going to happen. The truck pulls away. Now, I was really confused at this point because I thought Shaggy was walking with Scooby because he was going to go trade him for the other dog, but I just got it all wrong. Okay. So anyway, Shaggy runs up to an army dude, and
who he calls Charlie.
Right. He's at the gas station. He calls him Charlie. "Charlie, it's an emergency. Can I use your car?" And this kind soldier offers Shaggy his scooter. And doesn't that just make you want to donate to the USO or the Fisher House? I was very impressed with that brave
Sure. I was
member.
just, I didn't think that. I was more thinking of, does he know this guy? Like, he's just like, "Oh, hey, Charlie." And my first thought is, who is this? And why is he clearly voiced by Fred's voice actor?
What? Was he?
Oh my God. I thought it was Fred for a split second. Like, I was writing and I looked up and I was like, oh, that's not Fred. Like, it's the same voice.
Oh my gosh. I did
like,
not
he didn't even
get
try.
that. Okay. So, yeah, Charlie, I think, is just like an old-timey name for soldiers. Maybe?
Okay.
Like Checkpoint Charlie? No? I don't know.
I don't know. This was during Vietnam. So Charlie means something very different as far as soldiers go.
Yeah, you're right. Wait a second. Yeah, I am totally off on this Checkpoint Charlie thing. Oh my gosh. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, and we don't have time for it because we have other weird racist stuff to get into.
Right.
So, sorry, folks. That's a mystery to be solved on Facebook later. So, everyone, maybe it's just his friend Charlie. And so Shaggy shoots off on a Vespa and shouts, "Thanks, man." Meanwhile, Fred, Daphne, and Velma are in the mystery machine, and now there's like a beeping, rotating thing on the very top. It's super high tech. Oh, also now Velma has to sit in back. She's not allowed up front anymore because she is looking at some radar stuff. By the way, Daphne's neck totally back to normal. She has been taking some antibiotics or whatever. She's all fine.
I'm so glad. I was really glad to see that. I was concerned.
Yes, in episode 4, she had a weird neck. Okay, they're watching a transmitter, trying to find Scooby. And then in my notes, I just have this written down. Oh, no.
Yep. My notes are, I've written, "Just when I thought they couldn't get more racist."
Okay, here's what I've got written down in my notes because I can't even really bring it to describe. Shaggy sees a totally racist / Eurocentric depiction of a Native American ghost on a horse, waving a tomahawk and shouting war whoops. Question mark?
Yeah.
Question mark.
And
Is that
literally
kinda-
doing the thing that people stereotypically do where they like pop their hand on their mouth and like it was just it was bad.
It was really bad. It was like everything you can think of. And then it gets worse because Shaggy goes, "Oh no, Geronimo." And
Ugh.
and so here's where my brain is going to go because I want to still love the Scooby Gang. Here's what Shaggy actually meant by that was, oh no, what kind of idiot is trying to impersonate indigenous people with these outdated stereotypes? Trying to impersonate Geronimo? That's ridiculous. And maybe, no? Okay, anyway,
Yeah,
the shot.
no, I'm with
yeah.
you.
Yeah. So he's like, this is terrible. Why are you doing this? It not so much and being chased by an actual Native American. And the shock of this outdated stereotypical archetype makes him run over a log and fall off the Vespa. And by the way, he's in a desert now.
I've missed most of this because I was in shock at this point. This is another area where you're filling in blanks for me. I'm just like, oh, I was in shock because the next thing I remember was when it got way worse.
Yeah, this 22-minute episode, I think, took me about an hour to watch because I had to take down so many notes and also had to do some research that I'll get into in a bit.
Right.
So he's in a desert now, whereas remember before it was fall and there were deciduous trees everywhere.
Right.
We see the Dognapper's den. We're now inside the den. There's dogs in pens, and then what? In my notes is just all caps. We see a large wooden crate, and beside the crate is what looks like an SS officer, but like he's got an American accent, but he is just dressed like an SS officer down to the boots and everything. There's no swastika on his arm, but that's really all that's missing. He might be supposed to be a police dude, I guess. And then next to him is a figure in a faux traditional Native American leather outfit with fringe and everything with a giant parade-style mask that's supposed to look indigenous.
Right. It's like a stereotypical quote-unquote witch doctor type mask.
Right. And
which
by the way,
moves when he talks, which is disturbing.
yeah. That's a good point. And by the way, it's not similar at all to the silhouette of the ghost we saw earlier. You guys, Steven and I think probably both like died a little inside when we saw this.
A little bit.
So
I will
just
say, though, this indigenous man, quote-unquote, seemed to know a lot about show dogs. Just going to say that.
That's true, because the SS officer says, "We got him, boss." And why the boss is wearing the mask inside, I don't know. I'm guessing it's that the dogs don't recognize him, because I still
Sure.
posit that dogs in this universe can all speak English, perhaps. And the boss, and by the way, his voice is coincidentally very similar to Buck Masters. Just to remind you, he's the bigwig dude from the beginning of the episode.
Who also knows a lot about show dogs.
That's very true. He opens the crate and calls the SS officer a fool for mistaking this mutt for champion. And poor Scoob, he's awesome. You don't need to neg him. Come on. How many dogs do you know with opposable thumbs who can kind of speak, have mad negotiation skills, and a distaste for casual racism? Like, I'm just saying, yeah. He's not just some mutt. So they come up with an overly complicated plan for getting rid of Scooby. Instead of just being like, okay, here's a dog we don't need, just put him outside or whatever, or other horrible things you could do. So anyway,
Right.
they suggest to put him on an old-timey hand cart on a train track and send him down a hill.
As you do.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess we are dealing with racist and SS dude, so fine. Meanwhile, I mean, I don't know what else to say about this weird stuff, and it keeps getting worse. Okay. Meanwhile, I still love this show, but like, oh my gosh. Even back in 1969, this had to be inappropriate, right? Or no?
I don't know. I mean, I would assume so, but I mean, there was a lot of indigenous people fighting for rights in the 60s and 70s too. So like, I don't know.
I don't know. Okay. Meanwhile, humans and the Scooby Gang are looking for clues. Shaggy tells them all about the figure he saw while he was crashing the Vespa. And Velma finds something on the ground. She identifies this as, and here's in quotes, genuine Indian relic. And it's a tomahawk that she can identify as about 1,000 years old.
Sure.
So...
Very good carbon dating skills, that Velma.
Right. Okay. So first of all, we now know it's canon that Velma has the ability to timestamp stuff and with carbon dating. 2, her glasses were drawn really weird here, and I took a screenshot of it and I'll put it on Facebook. But 3, I did a bunch of Googling for tomahawks and wanted to learn about how much. I want to figure out how much could a 1,000-year-old tomahawk cost. Because remember, this whole thing is for county dog fair, right? So again, bragging rights, sure. But like a 1,000-year-old tomahawk, I'm guessing would be really valuable. Okay, so.
It's gotta be.
Do you want to guess what a 1,000-year-old tomahawk would cost?
$12.
Wrong. First of all, it's doesn't exist because I mean they probably had things kind of like tomahawks back then, but tomahawks with a metal edge were only around after Europeans came. So you didn't have iron making here, right? So it could have been made with like bone and things like that. Okay, so let's assume it's not 1,000 years old, but 200 years old, which is about like the oldest tomahawks I could find that like had metal on them. I have some I found on eBay, and the most expensive one I could find was $5,700. There's
Good
one.
Lord.
Yeah, there's one right now that is it's still the auction's still going on right now. It's at $2,000 with free shipping.
Well, I mean, at least you get free shipping.
Right, exactly. Okay, so let me go back there. Okay, sorry for the delay. I had to go down to my eBay screen caps. Okay, so anyway, I'm not sure what they found, but it sounds like it was probably incredibly valuable. Also, Daphne indicates that the transmitter is heading for Indian Gap, which is just a place they all know, which apparently is where there is a Pueblo reservation with like, have you ever visited an old Pueblo town like built into the side of the cliffs in Arizona?
No, I've never really been further west than like Tennessee. I'm pretty closed off.
Oh my gosh. Well, let me just tell you a little bit of information real quick. Excuse me. Sorry. Oh, first of all, by the way, it was the Algonquin Indians in early America who created the tomahawk, and Geronimo was an Apache, by the way, and he wasn't a Pueblo Indian. 2 totally different things. And also, Geronimo died in 1904 as a prisoner of war, and he wouldn't have had a tomahawk 1,000 years old. Okay. Anyway, so just all that stuff, and I'm sure if anyone else...
insane amount of information that I just learned, and I love it.
If anyone else has information about metal axe heads and, pre-contact Native Americans, you can email me. I'd love to hear all your additional information. Okay. Sorry, I have to go back down in my notes. All right, so they all head off towards Indian Gap, where I'm sure we won't see any other things that, would make us feel like our skin is crawling.
Right.
So, meanwhile, the SS officer sends Scooby to his death on this handcart train thing. And just for our listeners, that's where you kind of raise the bar up and down, and it makes the little train cart go. And Scooby, and there's a cart, like a crate on top of the cart. And Scooby uses his opposable thumbs and his razor-sharp claws to saw a circle in the ceiling of the crate. And so now his head pops out, and you can just see his head. And he's busting out as the mystery machine goes past. And so the van starts chasing Scooby, and then Shaggy jumps on the handcart with Scoob to help, and now they're on a train trestle. And then, oh no, a train! They all call it the Midnight Express is coming through. And
which I think was an old wrestling stable in the 1990s.
Really?
Or earlier. Yeah, it was like the 1980s or 90s, like a wrestling team called the Midnight Express. So that's all I could think about for a good solid few minutes after that. That and how bad I felt for the groomers that have to do Scooby's nails.
Oh my gosh, yeah, right. Good point. So they're being chased, Mystery Machine goes backwards, etc. Fred switches the track so that the train gets, I don't know, maybe derailed down the road, but we don't care because Scooby is safe, right? And the girls are really sweet to Scoob. And then when Fred asks where Scooby went, Scooby imitates the war whoops again. And Shaggy
I literally just wrote, "This is the most racist thing I've ever seen" on my piece of paper.
Yeah, Shaggy's distraught too, and I think it's because he's distraught seeing his friend's racist behavior. Just saying. So Fred wants to backtrack to the railroad. So maybe it's because Fred wants to track down these racists and Nazis. And, you know, that's why he's trying. That's what his vendetta is. That's why I was saying maybe I feel differently about Fred. You know, he might be a kidnapper and a murderer, but he will not stand for racism.
Right.
While they're on the handcar, an arrow hits their handcar, and then they see the ghost again. But they look at the arrow more closely, and it's factory made. This isn't a ghost arrow. This is an arrow from some horrible, I don't even know.
Right. Fred does have a moment where he's like, "These aren't like my homemade arrows that I use to kill my victims with. Right. This is made in a factory."
But why did they throw around 1,000-year-old tomahawk? Okay, so they see the Pueblo village. Fred makes an overly complicated trap from his, the stash that you've got. He uses a giant arrow, like the size of half his body, with a rope attached to it, and he kind of shoots it up from this homemade trebuchet to make a purchase in the wall, and then everyone climbs the rope, and it actually kind of seems to work. And then they're in the Pueblo village, and they see the boss dude, the guy with the giant mask. Mm-hmm.
There are two lines of dialogue here.
Oh, okay.
One that you passed, and I can't let stand because I remember just kind of staring at the screen. I didn't remember how they got into the Pueblo because I was too distracted by the fact that Shaggy, when they were like, "We'll go up there," Shaggy goes, "I'm not going into any Indian whatever. Nobody's getting my hair."
Oh.
And I was just like, oh no. Gosh. But then, so they get into the Pueblo and they see the boss man, just like you said. And what are the first words out of his mouth?
Pale-faced intruders.
Yes, he calls them pale-faced intruders. And I just slid down on my couch a little bit, just like, no.
And he's shaking maracas.
Which I don't understand.
I don't know. Maybe that is a thing, and I don't want to mock it. And, so at this point, I would leave. I don't like racists either. And I really have a grudge against Nazis as well. But I wouldn't stick around at night unarmed. I would go. But Fred says, let's keep searching. So a whole bunch of bats, like it must have been multiple thousands because they're just bats upon bats upon bats. It's bats the whole way down. They scare Shaggy and Velma. And so
Batman was born.
Right. Yes. And
okay. Well, they make a sick 1966 Adam West Batman reference, which at the time was only like 2 years old. So that would have been like super witty pop culture because
what did they
they're
say?
Like being attacked by bats and they're like moving around. And I think Velma says something along the lines of, if I survive this or something, I'm calling this dance the Batusi.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
the
Batusi is a dance that Batman did on the 1966 Batman show, the really campy one.
And while they're fighting off the bats, it really does look like the dance that Fred and Daphne were doing earlier on the beach, by the way. One of the bats takes Velma's glasses, and we know that when her glasses are gone, not only is she completely blind, all her other senses become completely incapacitated. So,
right. And we definitely know that he takes or not he takes, but one of the bats takes her glasses, because this scene goes on for a minute and a half, and literally every 10 seconds she goes, "My glasses," and I'm just like, okay, all right, we get it. Like the 7th time, I understand. Your glasses are gone.
There's a lot of plot in this episode, let me just say. Okay, so a really weird thing happens. While she's looking for her glasses, we hear right, Ruggy, which is Scooby, and then Shaggy says, "Right, Ruby," back to Scooby.
I missed that.
Yeah, it was really strange. Or maybe that's
I don't know. I was fascinated by how accusatory Shaggy was being of Scooby. I didn't hear him say that. Shaggy was a straight jerk to Scooby.
Why?
In this moment, because he had Velma's glasses on during this exchange.
Oh, that's true.
And it's very accusing. Like he's like, "Scooby, why do you have Velma's glasses?"
Oh,
just
right.
Like,
that's
I'm just like,
no good.
"Oh no!" And it was very much like a bad dog, like bad. And I was just like, "No."
And everyone else in this episode is especially kind to Scooby. Maybe they were having a lover's quarrel or some sort of sibling kind of tiff or something.
A lover's quarrel?
I don't know. Also, before he sees that it's Scooby, we see Scooby is kind of like covered up in a sheet with a mask and the glasses, and it looked like a figure from Spirited Away, kind of.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
I can see that.
Yeah, all right, but it's just Scooby. So Velma's blind and all her other senses don't work, and so she finds a totem pole and kind of feels it up, and she thinks it's Shaggy and Scooby, until Shaggy hands her the glasses. Thank goodness, because we cannot deal with many minutes of Velma with no glasses.
No, I can't do it.
Yeah. Fred and Daphne find a dome-shaped building. Now, they theorize this is a holy, sacred place. So, of course, they go on in to defile it. And they see a lit fire inside. And there's the boss dude again.
It's straight up burning bush, like, explodes into flame. And then he's standing there speaking. And then oh, my God. It was just, speaking of a holy, like, place that they're defiling, I was just like, are they being, like, super biblical right now?
Good point. I normally, me, I'm one for the biblical references, but I didn't catch that. He tells them they violated the sacred temple. If they don't leave now, they will have to stay forever. To me, it sounds like they should leave. There's lots of fire effects, as you mentioned. Daphne says to Fred, "Okay, we found him. Now let's go." And I really like that. It sounds like a mom who's like promised her kids at the zoo. I've got lots of parenting metaphors today. Okay, fine. We'll go look at the penguins. You saw them. Now we're leaving. Fred's like, "No, not yet. I want to check the altar." So while Fred is off continuing to defile the most sacred of the sacred place, Daphne sits on a bench and it disappears into the ground and is replaced with an empty bench. Fred is alarmed. And we have a commercial.
He was very alarmed.
He was very alarmed. Can we do another commercial? Do you think we can advertise another podcast?
Yeah, I think we can do that. Hey, everybody, this is your best friend, Steven.
And this is your best friend, Chris.
And we're the hosts of the podcast, Is This Adulting?
Every week, we sit down to talk about life, debate pointless topics, and most importantly, break the stigma on mental illness through opening up about our own struggles and how it affects us every day. Oh, and do you like games? We got those too.
What about guests from all your favorite podcasts?
Ooh, like Justin from Generation Y, or Nina from Already Gone, or Hal Lublin from Everything. And of course, you can't forget our special guest, Tom Bodette from those Motel 6 commercials. Okay, that last one might have been a stretch.
Yeah, just like them. So, join us each Thursday as we attempt to navigate adulthood as overgrown man-children. And remember, kids, be happy, stay healthy, and go hug someone.
Because you never know. They might just be the host of your new favorite podcast.
Okay, so what's going to happen? Will Daphne be killed? And the show
Yes,
has
she
one-
will. Spoiler alert, this is the last episode of any Scooby thing with Daphne in it. She's dead.
She's dead. It's Daphne 2 starting next time. Shaggy and Scooby are hunting for clues. Scooby smells some food down the stairs. And it's like a well-stocked Euro-style kitchen with lots of dog food cans. So, of course, they make a huge snack. Shaggy makes a giant big tall sandwich. But then we see a mysterious hand come out of a little hole in the wall, and it shoves Scooby down a slide to where the dog kennel is. So why there was a hole in the wall right in this correct place, I don't know. But a very convenient little slide. And there we see Daphne tied up quite alluringly, I might say, to a pole. And she asks Scooby to untie her. And so it's nice that he has opposable thumbs. But he also asks, before he unties her, if they can also free the dogs. And she's like, of course. Yeah, I love dogs. So they free all the dogs and the Daph. Okay, Fred is looking behind the altar for a secret passage. He finds one, and also he finds Velma?
Yeah, she was just there. Like,
She was
all
just
right.
there. And Fred's like, Velma, what are you doing there? Do you remember her great answer? She says, I don't know. The writers needed me to join you since there were too many loose threads in this plot, or something like that.
Essentially, she's like, I don't know. I sat down on a bench and now I'm here.
Right,
Ta-da!
and Daphne's there too. Yeah, and she says, come this way. And then we see the cutest image. It's a really cutie Scoob surrounded by all these grateful pups. And Fred says, good boy, Scooby. And you could tell that is a happy dog. So, Fred says, Scooby, see if any of your pals know anything about the Dognapper or witch doctor. So, this... I mean, okay. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I guess in this universe, only Scooby can talk because Scooby then speaks in dog. So we know he's bilingual in human and dog, but that the other dogs can communicate complex concepts, but they can only speak in dog. So Scooby is still really brilliant, and in this universe, other dogs don't speak human. Anyway, and Shaggy does that weird walk again that I mentioned with the really high knees. So I think that's just the way Shaggy walks, and I just never noticed it before. The dogs knock down Shaggy while he's eating his giant sandwich, but he saves it and stuffs the whole thing in one bite. You know, typical Shaggy.
And then he has to run.
Yeah, that's not safe.
And I'm just like, that's not good for digestion.
Nope. You could choke.
He's going to have some major tummy trouble later.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And who knows what was on that sandwich, too. I mean...
Actually, it was a pretty tame sandwich.
Oh, yeah?
I did hear him make the sandwich.
Oh, yeah, that's
there was
right.
ham and mustard and salami and cheese and rye bread, and all of that sounds good. Deviled ham, not so much, but still, like, not too far out of the ordinary, because that was when they were in that room with all the food. He made the sandwich and also made the terrible comment of, this isn't, and I'm doing this with air quotes, Indian food. To which I'm just like, what?
Yeah, what did you have in mind, right?
Because I hear Indian food and I think like literally like Indian food.
Right.
Like an Indian restaurant. Like
yeah, you would. Right. No,
like
this is
tikka masala. Like
that sounds really good, actually.
Oh my god,
okay.
for real.
Yeah. The dogs knock down Shaggy. The gang follows the dogs down ladders. These dogs can slide down ladders. It's very impressive.
Sure.
That's what you get with a champion show dog. The dogs and the kids run to the boss dude, and Scooby uses his opposable thumbs to pull the mask off of Buckmasters.
Called it.
Yes, you were right. How did you know? And
because he's the only character they introduced.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And he sounded just like the weird guy. And he says, "You blasted kids, why didn't you mind your own business?" And Fred declares because he loves Scoob. And
so
you
close.
can hear my dogs barking in the background, their agreement.
They're showing their love for Scoob.
Yes. Then we get a ton of exposition with the sheriff. And I'm not sure that I get it. Was Buck going to have his own dog returned right before the competition, after all the other competition was removed? I don't understand why or did he have a second dog and like just his lesser of two dogs was abducted to clear the field? Something about that. But it's all about the county dog show, right?
Yeah, I legitimately, I had checked out at this point. I was just like, well,
Yeah,
the one thing that I took away from it was like how frustrated I was when they were like, Buck Masters, who would have suspected? I was like, me. I suspected.
and
Give
again,
the viewer some credit.
Right. Our viewers over the age of 20 figured it out. The kids explained that the ghost shadow was just a racist projection from the back of a truck. And Scooby surprises them all by making a shadow appear of Geronimo again. And I like to think this was his parody of the racists to show how pathetic they were.
Yeah, I don't know if it was though. I kind of hope it was, but I think it was just I'm greatly hoping that the next episode is like, as it faded out, I was just like, my God, tell me the next episode is not going to be this racist.
We could really use a non-racist episode for a little while. Let's see what the next one is called What the Hex, HEX, going on. So it's going to be some anti-witchcraft propaganda.
Well, I mean,
maybe not.
I'm not saying that's good, but
maybe not. Maybe it'll be like, hey, different people, different religions, totally cool.
Yeah, I have no clue what to expect. I did look a couple ahead, though, and there's one that says something about a carnival, and I'm very terrified because I'm scared of clowns, and I'm scared there's going to be a clown, Julie. I'm so scared there's going to be a clown.
Oh, do you want me to pre-watch it and get a guest host for that one or something? I think you can handle it.
No.
We'll do some immersion therapy.
No, because I own the box set, and somewhere on the box there's a clown, so I'm just assuming it's that episode, and I'll look at him every night just to, like, prep for it.
Well, I have a meddling question for you for this week.
Yes.
This one is from Kathy Franco. On our Facebook page, she asked if we could look into Fred's past some more. And then meddling kid Matt Norton filled in. He says, and I just want to get your sense of this theory. He says, and I'm reading, he's a draft dodger. Daphne is his fiance. Shaggy is hippie. Velma is the serial killer. She's the smartest one of the group and always knows what's going on. Fred is busy trying to get Daphne alone. Thoughts? Draft dodging.
I mean, I still think that draft dodging, I could see that. He seems like that type of guy. I would argue that Velma's not the smartest because at one point in this episode she goes, "Boy, that witch doctor sure did speak English good."
I mean, all her victims would have to do is all her victims would have to do is remove her glasses, and she would be completely incapacitated.
Exactly. She would confuse her victims with herself and stab herself, and it would be the worst. Just the worst.
I think it's possible that Fred is not necessarily a draft dodger, but that he didn't pass the psychological exam to get in. Because there are tests that soldiers have to go to, even in times of war. They don't just let everybody in. They need to make sure that you can endure combat situations and be a good team member and not murder and kidnap people. And I don't know
Maybe
that
he's
Fred
flat-footed. Maybe that's why he's not.
And that he's not flat-footed. That's probably what it was. Okay, well, if you have a meddling question or you just want to let us know about your thoughts about the show, email us at meddlingkidspod@gmail.com. You can join us on Facebook like they did or tweet at us at meddlingkidspod.
Absolutely. We want to say thanks to Dave Seste for the use of the song Night Surfing, which I almost didn't get that sentence out. That's our theme music, though. We want to say thanks for it.
It's good. We also do the Running Man to it every week.
Yep, the Batusi.
The Batusi. Be sure to check out our other shows. Stevenson is This Adulting, and I do the Station Wagon podcast. And we'll be back next time with episode 6, which is sure to be an open-minded view of other Earth-based religions called What the Heck's Going On? And in the meantime, you can rate us and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get podcasts.
Yeah, and we actually have a review to read this week as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we got a review. So we're going to read that now because I'm great at transitions.
You have a boy voice, and it's from a boy, so I think you should read it.
Okay. Should I do it in like a man's voice? Like, I don't know. I just loved it. No, I'm just not gonna. No,
okay,
that's enough of that.
Yeah, I don't think that's okay.
The title is "Loved It Brings My Childhood Back," 5 stars. And it's by Tales from the Fandom podcast, which is a great podcast. Y'all should check it out.
Thanks, David.
Yep, and it just says, love the concept of this show and the people making it. It's a dive back into my childhood. Thank you. And that's David from Tales from the Fandom podcast. Well, thanks, you, David, for that.
And it's a fun show, too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be on that show
Are you?
at some point in the near future. I'm not sure when, but I will keep you updated.
Wait, is it one of those things like, oh, yeah, you sure you can come on the show someday? We'll figure it out. Or was it like,
I have a recording
Steven,
date.
please be on the show. Oh, awesome. Okay, I'm just checking.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about comic books and Broadway, so get ready for that.
Oh my gosh, you were the perfect guest for that show.
I'm the perfect guest for most shows. So for any of you out there, for your hosting needs, you give me a ring because I'm poor and I need something to occupy my time.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that's a paid gig from Tales
No, it's
from
not
the
a paid gig. Not at all. Yeah, no. Is that not how this works? Do you not get paid for every time you put your voice out on the internet, period?
Right. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Right, of course.
Anyway, I think that is going to do it for us here this week on the Meddling Kids podcast after a very uncomfortable week. We got through it, though. We plowed through, and you made it through listening. So thank you so much. Until next week, as always, I don't know what you did this week. I don't know. It could have been anything, but you would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for us meddling kids.
Have an icky, creepy day.
Ooh, creepy.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of good synonyms today. That was the best I could come up with on the spot.
Okay, I'm going to buy you a thesaurus for this.
Yes, because Google would not help, I'm sure. If I...
Oh.
No, you can buy me a
Google.
thesaurus. That's a great use for your money from all your paid gigs.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a great day, Steven.